blinding lights, flawless hair, and grins big enough to sell dreams. Charlie's Angels encapsulated the essence of primetime perfection with its blend of fantasy, elegance, action, and beauty. Everything was not fine, though, beneath the well-groomed exterior. The new Angel, Cheryl Ladd, portrayed poise in her cinematic role. But offstage, everything was considerably less polished. She was not only stepping into a job, she was walking into a minefield. And although each week's scripts built suspense, the real action was happening behind the scenes, spurred on by one co-star whose conduct on set was anything but divine. Cheryl Jean Stoppelmoor was born on July 12, 1951, in Huron, South Dakota, to a family of modest means. She would later become known as Cheryl Ladd, the beloved face of television. Her parents worked as railroad engineers, and she spent her childhood in a modest home while her mom worked as a waitress. Despite Huron's relative calm, Cheryl never was one to settle with the ordinary. She had an innate determination that pointed to bigger things, even when she was a youngster. She went on tour with a nomadic band called the Music Shop after finishing high school. She honed her stage presence and audience-pleasing skills as she traveled the Midwest, performing in coffee shops and nightclubs. The self-assurance she needed to move forward was given to her by that experience. She departed for Los Angeles in 1970 to pursue a career in music rather than acting. Taking on the role of Sherry Moore, she landed a unique singing role as Melody in the animated series Josie and the Pussycats. It was just a stepping stone to more prominent on-camera roles. The cartoon and the official 1970 record featuring the show both included her voice. This was a precursor to her future pro-credit work. Her music career ironically served as an entry point into the acting world. She quickly began landing guest spots and ad roles after producers took note of her. She appeared as a guest star on several popular shows in the early 1970s, including Happy Days, The Muppet Show, Search, The Rookies, The Partridge Family, Policewoman, and The Partridge Family. That she could do more than just sing was on full display for all to see. She was really charismatic on screen. Her break came after that. One of the original cast members, Farrah Fawcett, abruptly left Charlie's Angels in 1977 during its peak season. Following the pilot, Cheryl was a gamble for the producers who needed a replacement. She was cast as Chris Monroe, the character's younger sister, opposite Farrah Fawcett. Everyone thought Cheryl would fade in comparison to Farrah, but she proved them all incorrect. Her infectious enthusiasm, wit, and fresh perspective won over viewers at first sight. She was a regular until the show's 1981 demise, maintaining its momentum in its last seasons. Nevertheless, Cheryl persisted. She went on to publish books, appear in hundreds of television movies, and release CDs of music. It was evident that Cheryl Ladd was never just one thing in any of her performances, whether on stage, screen, or page. She was in a constant state of development. Life outside of work. While Cheryl Ladd's career shone brightly on American television, her most significant function has been that of mother. Cheryl had a daughter, Jordan Ladd, in 1975 during her marriage to actor David Ladd. This was 2 years before she signed on for Charlie's Angels. After inheriting her mother's stunning good features and radiant personality, Jordan went on to become an actress in her own right. Even at the age of 40, she still looks stunning. Its resemblance is astonishing. Decades apart, the two ladies enchanted fans as if they had discovered a fountain of youth. But there weren't always Norman Rockwell moments in Cheryl's life away from the studio. She was secretly going through a marital crisis while filming Charlie's Angels. Frustration with the demands of fame, the long hours on set, and the growing emotional isolation led to a final divorce. The reality that she might lose custody of her daughter made it much more painful. In the midst of all that chaos, Cheryl turned inward and upward. Her unwavering Christian faith served as her anchor. My prayers and attempts to contact Cheryl Jean persisted. She recalled the debilitating effects of her divorce and how she clung desperately to her daughter as she testified. She described herself as being engulfed in a whirlwind of self-doubt and terror. However, certainty came about as a result of trust. One day, I just found this peaceful place, she shared. I knew that I would get through it, and I knew that my daughter would be okay. Eventually, peace became a new chapter. Cheryl got together with Brian Russell, a music producer who, like her, had had his difficulties and, like her, had a strong Christian faith. They got married in 1981 and have been together ever since. It's their common spiritual foundation, Cheryl says, that has kept them strong. We started going back to church together. We pray together. We're both on individual journeys and a journey as a couple, said Cheryl. Faith transformed not just her relationships, but also the ordinary parts of her life. A spiritual principle was even found by Cheryl in her chosen sport of golf. She changed her perspective from being furious about a bad game to seeing it as a metaphor for life. "You think you're in control and you realize you're not," she said. "You just need to step back and let God." Aside from family and religion, Cheryl's artistic life has remained equally vibrant. She's put out 20 singles, 5 albums, and has had over 70 roles in film and television productions. In 2014, she played the role of the mother of Ian McCormick, a man whose dramatic near-death experience brought him to God in the Christian movie, The Perfect Wave. With love, tragedy, and rebirth, Cheryl Ladd's own life has been nothing but extraordinary. Casting couch incident before she was a household name on Charlie's Angels, Cheryl Ladd was merely another young woman attempting to break into Hollywood, a city that promised dreams but all too often delivered harsh realities. At 19, wide-eyed and fresh from South Dakota, Ladd had already demonstrated potential as a singer and actress. She came to Los Angeles with aspirations and a voice that had gotten her hired as the singing voice of Melody on Josie and the Pussycats. But though her ability was certain, the road ahead wasn't without risks. In one of her early run-ins, which she later discussed publicly but anonymously, Ladd confronted one of the industry's uglier realities. She had attended to see a male Hollywood executive, someone who could open doors, but the meeting soon became predatory. In her own words, the executive attempted to chase her around a desk in an obvious act of harassment. With instincts better than most would attribute to a teenager, she ran literally out of the room and out of the building. The picture is stark. A young woman running for her life in a location that was supposed to help her fulfill her ambitions. But for Cheryl Ladd, it was a wake-up call. Rather than letting it get the better of her, she doubled down on determination. She didn't let that moment define her, but she never forgot it either. It was a reminder, unspoken but clear, of what she and countless other women have had to face just to be heard. In retrospect, it's a shiver-inducing thought. To picture something like that happening to a woman who would go on to set the standard for a generation regarding grace, charm, and fortitude. Though most fans are familiar with her as the poised and polished Chris Monroe on Charlie's Angels, fewer are aware of just how close she came to being just one more cautionary tale about Hollywood's abuse of power. Ladd didn't capitalize on that episode for publicity. She never surfed the wave of victimhood. She instead quietly developed a decades-long career spanning television, film, and even Broadway, demonstrating that she was much more than a pretty face. Her tale isn't merely one man's inexcusable behavior. It's about survival, about leveraging the power of choosing to walk or flee from it, and about transcending a system meant to pull women down. Cheryl Ladd's strained relationship with Kate Jackson. Cheryl Ladd's tenure on Charlie's Angels wasn't a mere glamorous episode in her life. It was also characterized by behind-the-scenes drama. Particularly with Kate Jackson, the show's first angel, various sources, from industry commentators to fan reports, have documented an uneasy relationship between them. When Ladd took over for Farrah Fawcett in 1977, as Chris Monroe, assuming a wildly popular show midstream, the set became tense. Kate Jackson, who is a strong personality and one of the original Angels, was said to be less than friendly. Jackson would often keep to herself and wouldn't talk to Ladd for days. Some sources thought that Jackson felt threatened by Ladd's instant popularity with the public and the media, and that this heightened tensions. Although Cheryl Ladd was being publicly dignified, refusing direct censure. The other cast and crew members agreed that the tension between the two women was not difficult to avoid. Message forums have long included postings by background actors and television historians who reported that Ladd was generally nicer and more positive, but that the mood of Jackson could be reported as being cold and peremptory, particularly during demanding schedules of shooting. During an interview, Ladd referenced that her becoming part of the show was emotionally complicated, particularly since she was essentially taking someone else's place, as popular as Farrah Fawcett. Fans and tabloids inferred that this made for a competitive atmosphere, even if it was silent. Reports indicated that Jackson was expecting the producers to cancel the third Angel slot following Fawcett's departure, rather than recasting. And after Ladd's character became popular, the rivalry intensified. Ladd remained professional despite all the drama, and she lasted 4 complete seasons on the show, lasting longer than Jackson, who departed after season 3. Their Cold War was never formally resolved, but the lingering gossip and comments by others on the set are telling. Kate Jackson's explosive clashes with producers. Off-camera, behind the scenes of Charlie's Angels, Kate Jackson wasn't merely acting a tough-talking investigator. She was dealing with real-life battles. By season 3, Kate had become increasingly irate with what she perceived as superficial scripts and insufficient, substantial storylines for Sabrina. She desired that the show address real-life issues, provide more substance, and push her as an actress. But producers reportedly weren't interested in change. They wanted glamour, action, and a tight production schedule. One of the key turning points was when Kate was offered a role in Kramer vs. Kramer, a movie that won several Oscars. Eager to get it, she requested that the producers shift the shooting schedule. Their response? A resounding no. They allegedly would not make an exception for her, and Kate was forced to reject a career-defining role. That choice not only stoked her outrage, it also solidified a barrier between her and the creative staff. From then on, tension on location became impossible to avoid. While Kate pushed back, Cheryl Ladd, who had recently joined the show as Chris Monroe, played things differently. She adopted the scripts, kept her head down, and rode into the lighter, more glamorous side of the series. Producers appeared to reward her strategy. Cheryl started receiving more screen time, bolder promotional emphasis, and an increasing fan following. As per some insiders, her ability to go along with the show's direction made her the new darling. Essentially, the show became a story of two actresses, one fighting the machine, the other adapting to it. As brave as Kate's bluntness was, it also left her increasingly relegated to the bench. Cheryl's ascension, however, wasn't merely a matter of beauty or charm, it was calculated. By avoiding the drama, she stepped right into the limelight that Kate was gradually losing. How fame broke, both women in different ways. On the surface, Charlie's Angels was a dream job, glam, fame, magazine covers, and the sort of popularity most actors can only fantasize about. But beneath the glamour and slow-motion walk scenes, both Kate Jackson and Cheryl Ladd were quietly disintegrating under the heat of the spotlight, albeit in radically different ways. For Cheryl Ladd, taking over the character of Chris Monroe involved taking on the part of one of America's most discussed women of the day. The stress of replacing Farrah Fawcett, of staying camera-friendly, of being nice and not causing a scene off-screen, drained the emotions of Cheryl. In later interviews, she admitted that she was having a very dark period during her Charlie's Angels days. The pressure of remaining flawless when the cameras were on and shutting out personal hardship eventually forced her to go see a therapist. It wasn't all about acting. It was all about enduring America's sweetheart mental pressure. Kate Jackson's experience, on the other hand, was defined by a different type of stress. She wasn't as worried about fame as she was about the work itself. Famous for her quick wit and bold tongue, often fought with producers about script, creative choices, and scheduling. One especially hurtful incident occurred when the producers would not reschedule shooting dates so that she could take a role in Kramer vs. Kramer, a part that went on to win Meryl Streep an Oscar. That defeat nagged at Kate and fed her bitterness against the leadership of the show. She wasn't tired. She was angry, disillusioned, and creatively repressed. What's interesting is the way that both of these women were being broken down by the same machine, just in different ways. Cheryl was made invisible and voiceless behind the front of being the nice angel, while Kate was vocal about her suffering and frequently punished for it. Fame did not set them free. It broke them, and in the years to come, both actresses openly talked about the psychological cost of the series, illuminating how Hollywood success stories conceal more sinister scars. In the limelight, both angels fell, but in ways that the public never knew until much later. How Kate Jackson's fight for survival exposed a secret that nearly killed her. Behind Kate Jackson's poised confidence, quick tongue, and Hollywood grin was a woman slowly disintegrating physically, emotionally, and in silence. While she was widely admired by viewers as the smart, no-nonsense Sabrina Duncan of Charlie's Angels, Kate was living through something much more savage than anything an acting role could ever possibly arm her to withstand. It started quietly. In the mid-1980s, while riding the wave of fame and trying to rebuild her career, Angels, Kate was hit with a diagnosis that shook her to the core. Breast cancer. She kept it private at first, undergoing treatment quietly while still trying to work. But the emotional cost was steep. "I was forced to face my mortality," she would later tell People magazine. The mere possibility that her body, so strong, so capable, would betray her, shook her. But just as she was beginning to find some balance again, life slammed her once more. In 1989, a follow-up mammogram showed that the first surgery had left some cancer behind. She had no other option but to have a partial mastectomy and reconstructive surgery. It was a savage experience, not merely physically, but emotionally. It was no longer about survival. It was about womanhood, strength, and identity. She relied on her Charlie's Angels co-star, Jacqueline Smith, throughout, who was a rock throughout her worst moments. Nevertheless, Kate attempted to press on. She accepted roles such as the lead in the Baby Boom television show adaptation, but the series did not last long. Her body was conspiring against her, and so was the industry. Offers dwindled. The gigs disappeared, and then in 1995 came a crushing new blow. Kate had been born with a congenital heart defect, an atrial septal defect that had gone undetected her whole life. It made sense of it all, the tiredness, the breathlessness, the feeling that something wasn't quite right. This time, she would have to have open-heart surgery to live. During her recovery, Kate understood how vulnerable life was, but she didn't let it hide her. She instead employed her voice to spread awareness, becoming an advocate for breast cancer as well as heart health. The American Heart Association awarded her the Power of Love Award in 2003 for her advocacy. But Kate Jackson's fight was not simply one of disease. It was one of courage, silence, survival, and ultimately healing. The curse of the angel's halo. The sheen of Hollywood doesn't merely blind its stars, it incinerates them. For Kate Jackson and Shelley Hack, Charlie's Angels was simultaneously a blessing and a curse, the moment that catapulted them into fame, and the shadow that haunted them for decades to come. They were loved, idealized, and branded perfect by millions. Yet that badge like a halo was never genuine. It was something bestowed upon their heads, radiating from a distance but suffocating close up. For Jackson, the illusion of control was soon shattered. Each relationship she embarked on subsequent to the show appeared to be destined to follow the same script. Beginnings full of promise, endings bitter, devastation in the wake of emotions, 3 marriages, multiple breakups, and a column of unacknowledged wounds. Beneath the tabloid scandals of love and divorces was a woman quietly shattering. And when she did talk back, such as when she told her ex-husband he might as well have stolen from her with a Brinks truck, there was no glamour anymore. Just hurt. Hack, by contrast, was stereotyped before she even arrived. Her debut on Charlie's Angels brought with it hyper expectations, not only to fill a slot, but to be a fantasy. No one wanted a woman. No one wanted anything less than a mirage. The hate she faced wasn't only mean, it was cruel. She wasn't enough, they explained. Too cold, too intelligent, too different. And the show ditched her like she was trash. She never had a chance. But the most heartless irony of all, these women weren't victims of fame alone. They were ensnared by the same image that brought them to fame. The halo of the angel caused everything they did thereafter to appear as a fall from grace. Each failure, each misstep, each quiet meltdown behind closed doors was a betrayal of perfection. And still they persisted. Not because they needed to demonstrate anything to the world, but because they would not be deleted. The curse did not kill them. It did not engulf them. It tormented them. But they continued, with the specter of that golden radiance always hauntingly behind them. While the tabloids loved to report on the turmoil between Cheryl and Kate, their co-stars sat front row center to the drama as it played out. And their responses told so much more than the public was ever privy to. These weren't just co-workers on a posh TV soundstage. They were observers of tensions that simmered just below the surface. Jacqueline Smith, who portrayed Kelly Garrett, usually functioned as the low-key glue of Charlie's Angels. With her serene on-screen presence, Jacqueline never directly opined on the fights, but in one interview, she quietly confirmed how different personalities clashed and how being thrown into fame that fast could either bond people or break them. Her tone was balanced, not critical, but it was apparent she had witnessed it all. David Doyle, the actor who played Bosley, was front and center in the dynamics of the Angels. On set, he would frequently attempt to play peacemaker. Friends of the actor revealed later that Doyle was terribly moved by the backstage dynamics. He once labeled the set as magical, but not always peaceful. He never picked sides, but his refusal to comment when asked about Cheryl said a lot. Other guest stars who were seen in the series remembered times when tension would be experienced between takes. One of the background actors admitted to having experienced, "You could feel a shift in the room when Cheryl walked in." Some characterized her as aloof. Others said she was a reserved woman attempting to endure a media spectacle with a smile that did not always fit the atmosphere. What's ghosting is how few individuals spoke out of devotion to the show's reputation or fear of retaliation by the studios. Most remained silent until years afterward, when retrospectives and memoirs opened the floodgates. Ultimately, the co-stars weren't boisterous, but they were revealing. Their subdued nods of approval, veiled reports, and exhausted recollections speak volumes as to how much was left unsaid and how fame can keep even the brightest among us in isolation. In the whirlwind of fame, beauty, and betrayal that defined the world of Charlie's Angels, both Jacqueline Smith and Kate Jackson emerged as women who paid a heavy price for their place in television history. For Jacqueline, the cost came in the form of shattered marriages and the pressure to maintain a perfect image in a world that was anything but. For Kate, the toll was far more private, a life marked by emotional upheaval, 3 failed marriages, serious health battles, and a quiet retreat from public view. But through it all, something rare remained, their friendship. Despite the chaos that surrounded their careers, Smith and Jackson built a connection that refused to break. They didn't always walk the same path, but their lives continued to mirror one another in surprising ways, both suffering heartbreaks, both reinventing themselves, both finding solace not in the glitz of Hollywood, but in personal growth, motherhood, and a quieter kind of love. In 2023, decades after they first shared the screen, Kate Jackson made a rare public appearance, not for an award show or a magazine cover, but for the wedding of Jacqueline Smith's son. That single moment spoke louder than any headline ever could. It was a reminder that beneath the fame, beneath the scripted glamour, were two women who endured, who aged, who loved, and who remained tethered to each other through it all. Their story isn't just about what happened on screen. It's about survival, about real-life scars behind the angelic faces, and about a friendship that, even after all the lights dimmed, still burns quietly in the background. Proof that not all things in Hollywood fade. Some, against all odds, actually last. And there you have it, the untold truth behind the lives of two women who once wore halos on screen but carried invisible scars off it. If their story moved you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon so you never miss more stories that dig deeper than the headlines. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.